As you might know, we've been doing a series of negotiation videos for the channel, aka what do people talk about before they tie each other up. Now, other videos so far, it's been pointed out that all the people I've negotiated with, I have tied previously. I was lucky enough that when KallistaJ, the kinky yoga instructor, came over to do some filming, she was happy to be tied and she was happy for the negotiation for that to be filmed. So thank you very much to her for that. Let's check it out. So I've never tied you up before.
No, you haven't.
No. Do you get tied up by many people?
Not too many.
Yeah.
No. We've done the classes. We've done speed rope. And I've done a bit of that. Harmony's tied me up. And my partner, obviously. But Velas, I think, is the only other person who's tied me. Yeah, not many people.
Okay. And what do you get out of it? What drives you towards
Subspace.
it?
The Subspace, for sure. There's also, it's a bit like dance, in a way. I was a ballerina for, 14 years, something like that. So it's just a way to connect, to go back to something that's a bit like dance. It's a bit like yoga.
So the dancing, is it like do you mean this in like the back and forth between rigor and model, or is it the positions you're in?
A little of both. But yeah, it is, again, it's that connection between one body and the other. So, and it's kind of fun to be tossed around a little as well. So, if I can get out of it, I will get out of it.
Okay.
I shouldn't tell you this, but I have a bad habit of not bending quite as much as I can bend so that I can get out of things.
So you like to be able to escape rope? That's kind of part of the challenge for you?
Yeah. I mean, I like to be able to get to a point where I can't escape it anymore.
Okay.
But you will find that, especially because I practice yoga a lot, as my body warms up, you'll put me in something and it'll have felt really secure. And then about 5 minutes later, I'll be like, oh, look, it's fallen off. Oh, dear. I'm a little bit of an escape artist.
And what kind of relationship does that have with Subspace then? It feels like an interesting contradiction.
So, again, Subspace is that idea of being in the present and having that unity of body and mind and breath. So it's not about having an active plan to escape. It's about taking advantage of what is there. And if I can get to a point in play, because ideally, I do want to hit Subspace, but I don't want to necessarily, I don't want to drop myself into Subspace. I want you to put me in Subspace. So if there's something that I can take advantage of to kind of weasel my way out, I might. But if I've hit my threshold, if I've hit my point and I'm in a happy place, I might just turn around and be like, no, I'm here, I'm good.
Okay.
So it's a little bit of, I don't want to be a doll, and I don't want to, even though I can do the work and get myself into Subspace myself, I don't want to have to do that. Plus, it's kind of amusing to me when somebody thinks that I'm, very secure, and then I go, foot, something. So, it's not, for as much as it is something that can be choreographed and something that, can be seamless and beautiful, a lot of the fun is the organic nature of it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Absolutely. Do you see suspension as being a big part of rope for you?
I've had less experience with suspension than I think most bunnies might, actually. We don't have a setup at home where I can be safely suspended. So a lot of it is when we go to clubs, and my partner is not always necessarily strong enough to get me off the ground. So a lot of the suspension that I've done have been with people who are physically bigger than me and can actually heft me up.
Okay.
So, but I'm quite happy to go into a suspension. I'll need a warning if we go into an inversion, just because I will change the way that I'm breathing, particularly right now because, as we talked about earlier, I've got a little bit of fluid on the top of my lungs. So just give me a heads up beforehand so that I can be a little bit mindful of that and monitor that a bit.
So we're effectively talking about your lungs being lower than your hips. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah. So inversion being like, lungs or heart being actually higher than the head is what like the yogic definition is. So that's the definition that I use.
Do you almost like have a pre-warning when you're going to be suspended? And the reason I ask that is because, like, say if I'm suspending someone and it's like a harness involving the arms, say for example like a TK or an arms forward tie, usually, well, vast majority of the time, I'm being very careful with the positioning of that so that I don't like damage the shoulder or go too tight on the radial nerve or something like that, which usually involves like a fair amount of model preparation. Doesn't mean that we have to sit there and like lab it for an hour, but like it usually is like, I'm going to take your arm and put it in position, check you're good with that, and then put your arm in position and tie it.
Yeah.
Do you kind of almost like feel like you have a different mode when you're being suspended, where you're a bit calm and more compliant, or?
Yeah, I mean, like anytime that you're off the ground and you're dependent on your muscles and on rope to keep you in a safe position, that's going to be like, I'm obviously not going to try to like wriggle out of that because the purpose of that is to be in the air. I am a little bit more compliant then in that sense.
Yeah.
And it is a little bit of a different mode going in. I'd say it's almost like, especially the setup, being put in a harness or, having my arms put in place, it's more like professional bunny mode as opposed to being in like a state of subspace. I don't totally lose my capacity to communicate, especially at the beginning.
Yeah, I think once you get more acquainted, at that point, you can mess around with it a little bit more because I know where like the target is, if that makes sense. It's a little bit harder at the start, I think, because there's that concern of I don't want to like, mess up your rotator cuff or anything like that. So I want to make sure that's all good. With arms forward, there's a little bit more scope, and arms out, there's a little bit more scope for like dragging you around and pushing you around whilst I'm tying you.
Yeah.
The like initial stages.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I will say if this arm does go back and up, do just be careful because it is still a little bit sensitive. It's my dominant hand, so I have less movement in this arm. So I would possibly say less weight bearing on this side than on this side. Once long ago, I broke my arm. I think it's my dominant hand. It's the dominant side of my body, which means that it's the slightly stronger side of my body, but it's the less flexible side. So when it's pinned and back, there's a different relationship with the muscles and nerves. I haven't quite tacked it down yet, but it's fine for a bit, but it's not like, don't build a fancy suspension where that's the last thing that needs to be undone. Yeah,
got you. How do you feel about like being taken down? So you mentioned like the playfulness and the back and forward. How do you feel about like being physically controlled, like manhandled?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. I think I told a lie earlier because it wasn't just Novellis, it was her partner as well. We did a little bit of that at some point, and that was quite fun. So yeah, takedown is fine. Hair is fine. From about here to here. I don't like that. So anything going directly across the neck, particularly into the jaw. I like to say that I was probably hanged in a past life. So that's not my favorite thing.
Okay. When you say it's not your favorite thing, is that something you want me to avoid?
Please.
No problem.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, neck, sternum.
Sternum's fine from about jaw to collarbone. If you can get something so that it ties about here and anchors here, that's fine.
Great.
So it is this bit.
Not your trapezius muscles.
No, they're fine.
Yeah,
they're fine. So it's just the column of my throat, anchor it here. It can go up and around, and that's fine. It's weird. like strangulation in, play with my partner, that's fine. But like as soon as it's, rope or something like that, I'm like, oh, no, thank you.
Yeah.
So just this little box, I guess.
Okay.
And if something gets too close or I decide like that's not, if it's no bueno, I'll tell you.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, like, if I do end up going over your shoulder, it's not out of the realms of possibility that you could start to move inwards, in which case, if someone's bothering you, just tell me and I'll sort it out.
I'll let you know.
Yeah.
If at any point I shout safe word, my partner and I have a running joke that we couldn't think of something because we didn't want to use the traffic light system because apparently we just want to be difficult. So if I shout safe word at you, that's just means stop, please, and check in and we'll sort it from there.
I like that your safe word has a working title.
Yeah. Basically. It started as a joke and it's just kind of gone from there. But I find it works pretty okay if I'm in a situation with people that are new too, because if you shout safe word, like, that's pretty universal.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
For hands and for feet, I have hyperhidrosis. So I am clammy and cold. So you need to know that my fingers are always cold. My circulation is probably fine.
Yeah.
And they're always slightly damp, just because I'm clearly blessed that way.
Yeah.
Rope in my palms is fine. So if you want to tie around my arm and then put something across my palm, that's fine. With the sole of the foot, if you want to put something in the arch, that's fine. Please avoid between the toes and between the fingers because that sets my nerves in my hands off and it's not a nice sensation.
That's cool. Do you prefer if I avoid touching your fingers, touching your toes?
Yes, please.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Because occasionally I do things like to turn hands over, I use the fingers.
Back of the hand is fine. If you're grabbing all of the fingers, that's fine.
Yeah.
Just don't stroke my palm or my fingers because it sets the nerves firing for some reason. So it is what it is.
Yeah.
That's fine.
From a body control point of view, how are you with hands on neck, hands on face? Not choking, but hands there.
Hands there is fine. Again, as long as you're avoiding the column of my throat, that's fine.
Cool. So you'd be okay with me moving your head like that? Hand on your sternum?
That's fine.
Cool. Awesome. Putting rope between your legs to make a harness, but not to go central, but to go to one side or the other. That'll
be fine. Yeah. Just as long as it's not central, because that's something I have to ask permission for.
No problem. That's fine. Yeah, so there's sometimes if I do a harness, I'm aiming for the very top of the quad. I'm not aiming to go down the middle.
Yeah, that'll be okay.
Do you think you'd be happy telling me?
Yeah.
If something was making you uncomfortable?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm very much. I'm trying to say this to everyone that we could have this negotiation and we could do things completely within the negotiation, and something in the scene could still bother you, and that's completely fine.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I'm a bad rigger. It doesn't mean you're a bad model. And I'd rather know than not know.
Yeah, no, I'll give you a shout. If things are good, I'm quite quiet. If they're not, I am very gabby and borderline brat. So I will let you know if I don't like something. If something changes, I will let you know. If I'm unsure of something, I'll probably ask what you're doing and why. But other than that...
How are you normally after scenes?
We're just tying. So a cup of tea after would probably be nice.
Yeah.
I will probably do either a little bit of stretching or a little bit of breathing with my palms up to get me back to a space where I'll be safe to leave. But normally I'm okay.
Great.
With a little bit of tea.
Have you eaten today?
I have. I've eaten breakfast. Wouldn't want to eat before tying anyway. In the same way that I wouldn't want to eat before yoga. Just because things get twisted and squished.
Yeah, that's fair. Like fruit is available if you would like some.
Okay, cool. That's good to know. Right, I'm good if you're good.
Yeah, I'm good.
Lovely.
Thank you for watching. There's going to be a lot more from Kallista on the channel, so please do check that out. Our aim with this channel was to provide high quality rope education as accessible as possible. Now, the idea was we were going to use things like YouTube ad revenue in order to cover the time it makes to make the videos. Unfortunately, places like YouTube, places like Instagram, etc., they do not like content like this very much. Regardless of how many views we get on things, the vast majority of what we do gets demonetized. As a way of covering that gap, we've set up a Patreon. If you can afford to give a small amount, we really appreciate that, and it keeps these sorts of videos going. As a way of saying thank you, there's lots of little goodies over there. We've got extra videos, we've got extra articles, we've got live classes, all sorts of business going up every month. Check it out, see what you think. Bye-bye.